Hello, welcome to my channel. My name is Dakota Hunt. I am a breathwork facilitator and a life coach. And today I'm excited to be joined by Alex. Alex is one of my fellow breathwork classmates, right? We're going through the pause program together. And I have actually also done a little bit of somatic coaching with Alex before. She is maybe crazy because she is doing the somatic coaching and the breath work at the same time, which is amazing. I'm so here for that. And I'm excited to talk to her a little bit about that today. But yeah, I was fascinated by what came forward in my coaching session with Alex. And so yeah, I am so excited that you're here today, Alex. Welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
I'm great. How are you doing today?
Good. I'm doing so good. I'm doing so good. I'm excited to just hear more about your personal journey with breathwork and coaching. Yeah, and I guess that's my first question is how has it been going through a somatic coaching training program as well as a breathwork facilitator training program? What has that been like?
It has been absolutely crazy how much has changed since starting last year. I would say just like looking back at the person that I was when I said yes to the somatic coaching program and then where I am now, graduated, having some clients now, and then towards, in the middle of the breathwork program as well. Just being able to look back on that it's the most incredible experience. I was a completely different person back then, and it's just getting better as well.
Yeah. Oh, beautiful. I love that you touched on that. Where were you when you started? Like, what was your state of mind? Where were you in life? Like, maybe even why did you start? Why did you make that decision in that moment to start with that coaching program? I would love to hear.
Yes. So to answer that first part of the question, when I said yes, I was on break at a job that I just absolutely did not like. I was in my car on break talking with one of the mentors about potentially signing up for the somatic coaching. I was at a point where I knew that I was meant for something more, but I had absolutely no idea how to get there. I've taken a bunch of different programs on manifestation and, how to be a content creator and how to do this and that, but nothing was ever fully opening up my eyes to what my next step was. So to be able to jump into somatic work and then to learn that all these answers are within me instead of trying to look outward for the perfect thing. Yeah, that's been absolutely incredible. And I think mentally, emotionally, where I was beforehand as well, I dealt with a lot of anxiety, depression, did not believe in myself fully. And so to be able to say now I don't identify with being an anxious person is kind of unbelievable.
Yeah.
But obviously I'm still human. I still feel anxiety, but I don't identify with it anymore. And that's such a blessing.
That is so beautiful. That is so beautiful. And you said that now you have coaching clients, right? Like people that are paying you for coaching. That's
Crazy.
Amazing. Yeah, it's so cool. It's so cool. And I would love to know, how is somatic coaching different from like general life coaching or the other kind of coaching that is more prominent?
Yeah. So it's interesting. I didn't fully understand it when I first signed up. It was like this reaction in my body that was saying, go for it. So I just followed that. And I would say the biggest difference is while there is still mindset work and there is still the practical part of coaching that is included, but really somatic work is a body-based approach. So in the beginning of our sessions, we drop into the body to allow your mind just a little bit of a break from continually having to figure out what's next. It just kind of releases a lot of the pressure of trying to figure everything out. And yeah, being able to drop into your body and really connect with your intuition and connect with your higher self, connect with source, God, the universe, however you feel connected to it, And the answers and the clarity that comes through is absolutely amazing. And to be able to continually come back and drop into the body more and more, and to learn how to do that on your own as well. So you're being given tools where you can, instead of trying to plan everything out all the time and feel this like pressure from like the mind, you're able to learn the tools to connect with your intuition.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that is so beautiful. Okay, let's go there a little bit deeper,
Okay.
because like past Dakota would have been like, what do you mean, like get into my
Mm.
body, right? Like she'd been like, what do you mean that I can connect to God through my body? There was definitely this, you kind of spoke to this of God is out there, and to access God, I have to like do all the right things, like pray in the right way, like like listen to the right people, read the right books. Like there was this, like, he's out there. And that for me has been so like completely life changing to actually find God like within my actual physical body. Sorry, I just kicked my desk. And so I'm curious to hear more, like your perspective on that is maybe like on a tangible physical level, but also just like on a spiritual level, is what does that look like or feel like to actually go into your body to access that higher power and that inner wisdom?
Mm. Yes. Oh my gosh. This is my favorite thing to talk about. So I was raised in a very strict religion that taught me, if you don't follow these very strict rules, then you will not be in God's favor. You can
Yeah.
only learn about him through what these men are telling you. And that was it. So it felt very strict, felt very anxiety filled, very fear based. And so when I left that religion, and for a while, I just didn't believe in anything, and I really cut myself off from any sort of spirituality at all.
Yeah.
Never prayed, never did any sort of spiritual work. And then through the last few years, I felt a calling back, but I still had all of this fear-based beliefs behind it. So I kind of pushed it away and ignored that feeling. And somatic work was that piece. Breath work truly as
Mm.
well. Like being able to feel like God is no longer gatekept by men telling me
Mm.
how I need to believe in him, how I can talk to him. And it has opened up my world to making me feel powerful in myself. And so to answer the question about like what it means to really drop into the body, it's allowing yourself to look inward to be able to figure out what's next. Or if there's a pattern in your life that keeps showing up, or a behavior that keeps happening, you're able to, with the guidance maybe of someone who does somatic work or breath work, you're able to be guided to find out why you are acting that way, or why this is presenting itself, with curiosity and love rather than judgment and fear.
Yeah.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
and then you learn how your intuition talks to you. So sometimes people can hear messages, sometimes they feel it, sometimes they see it. People are very visual, or smell it or taste it. There's just so many different ways that you can learn how your intuition's been trying to communicate with you. And then it gets stronger and it gets stronger. And then before you
Yeah.
know it, you can call upon it whenever.
Oh my gosh, my whole body, like I'm so giddy hearing you talk about this, because it's so, so relevant to my personal life experience as
Mm.
well, as you were talking to. And what you were just saying about, well, there was two things. One was like, you get to hear God with like love and understanding instead of that judgment, right? Like that fear and judgment, like that shift was so huge for me as well. And then that intuition, and how one of the things in the religion that I grew up in that they would always talk about that I love, 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 is they would say you need to like learn how to receive personal revelation.
Mm.
And they would really teach that way. It'd really like, it's really important that you can hear God's voice in your own way. But there was also this like tone of, but these are the right ways to figure that out, right? Like there was both. There was this message of like, yeah, receive personal revelation, but then there was, structure and strictness and right and wrong and judgment and fear. And so it really, in my system, looking back, like it was such a mixed signal for me. And it wasn't until I entered into this realm of breathwork and somatic work and somatic healing and somatic coaching that I finally realized, like, oh, the reason I struggled so hard to figure out how I received personal revelation was because I was looking to all of these external sources for my answer. And to come into the body, and I love that you named that everyone accesses it differently. That's something this, like, literally this last week, I've really been noticing about myself, is that I'm a very visual, intuitive person. Like, that visual field is wide open for me, and to lean into that and to trust that. And, you know, it's so interesting to me, and I'm curious your experience on this has been with me my whole life, right? Like, my intuition has always been with me, but for me, it's been learning, how do I recognize it as intuition? Because it's so familiar. It's just how I am. And, you know, and it's so easy to even think like, this is how I am. This is probably how everybody is, right? Like, I'm not, you know, it's just there. And so for me, it's almost like a remembrance. It's like in that breath work, in that coaching, as the other person on the other side of the screen or in person is helping me see these things, for me, it's so powerful to be able to witness my inner voice, my inner intuition, and realize, oh, that is my intuition. That's not just being a human. Like, that's my spirit. That's my spirit talking to me. And some people share that, like, that's, you know, some people share that visual ability and can really relate, but other people are different. And it's like, what does that look like for you? And I actually would love to know, Alex, what does your intuition look like? Do you mind sharing?
Yeah. So I love that you touched on how these things they've always been there. But, and I like to think of intuition, how I try to explain it to people sometimes is, it's kind of like a friend that's trying to talk with you. And if your friend is constantly reaching out to you over and over again, and you're not listening, you're not paying attention to them, eventually they're going to get quieter and quieter for a while. But when you really start making it known, like, I'm here to listen, or I'm going to listen to what you have to say, then that relationship starts to deepen again. And so I think back to all these times in my life where my intuition has been talking to me. I'm a very, like, I hear a lot of messages. And so my very first memory of a clear message I heard was when I was in my religion. I was in trouble. I was in the elders room, they call it, and they were just grilling me on these questions, and something just felt really off. And I heard in the middle of that, this is not normal. No one should have this much control over your life. And I heard it. It was very loud and very clear on my right side. And I couldn't ignore it. And so, you know, I finished up my chat with them, my interrogation, and went home and really thought on it. And it was like, I acted on it pretty much immediately, stopped going to the church, stopped, you know, went completely 180 in my life. Later on, I started to hear little things like, moved to New Zealand, absolutely crazy, but I applied for a visa, moved out there for a year, and I started following it on all these really big things. And I didn't really know what it was at the time. I was just getting these feelings, hearing these messages, and going. And so that's kind of been, that was my realization with doing this work. I'm like, oh, that's my intuition. Let me like really make it clear that I'm listening to it now. And so now when I do breath work, or when I start my day with silence, or just throughout my day, my week, I start to hear these little messages or have these feelings that come up. I do see visions, but more so in like deep breathwork sessions and deep meditations. But I would say feelings and hearing things like that would be the way that I feel like I communicate mainly with my intuition.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Thank you so much for sharing. That is such a really special experience. And I just want to like see you in that.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're so welcome. Yeah, it was interesting as you were talking. I was like realizing a couple times where I have heard a message, you know, and I love that you spoke to like, you also see visions. It's like I think we can access God in all the ways, right? And we can definitely we can develop those gifts. There's just different strengths, right? We all have different strengths. And one of the messages that I will share that I received when I was really deep in the turmoil of where am I going, like in life, right? Like deep in that turmoil of where am I going with my religion? Where am I going with my spirituality? Like really deep in that. And I was journaling. Journaling has always been my method of prayer, which I never would have called it that before, but that's really what I was doing, right? It was speaking, was like praying. And I just remember, even in the moment, I was like, this is God's voice. He just said Dakota. And it was almost like he was exhausted. It was almost just like, Dakota, I find joy in your journey. And I just I just saying that out loud, just the amount of love that I felt in that was just, it was so cool to, I think I'm not exactly sure the timelines. I think I had started doing a little bit of breath work at that time of my life. And the ability for me to just hear that voice, to recognize it for what it was. And this was a big piece for me, was to trust that that voice is actually God's voice and my intuition, especially when it's saying things that are contrary to what I was taught was right. That for me was such a huge hurdle to get over. And I realized me trusting my intuition, me trusting my path of personal revelation, and trusting that voice of God, if you will, it wasn't saying the things that I was conditioned and taught to believe. And that was a really big hurdle for me to overcome, that ultimately I contribute breathwork to being the reason that I was able to overcome that and to really finally understand and trust that intuitive voice inside of me.
Yeah. I love that you say it goes against your conditioning and your belief system, because a lot of times we can still get messages when, you've had that really deep conditioning. Little messages can pop up, and like you said, it can be kind of hard at first to understand, who is that that's talking to me? Whose voice is that? Is that my intuition? But when our intuition is talking to us, it might not make sense fully, but it's never riddled with the shoulds. Like, I should be doing this, or I should be doing that, or weighed down by this responsibility of, I need to do this because it'll make this person happy, or I shouldn't do this because it'll disappoint this person. There's always these shoulds and shouldn'ts that is riddled around something that is a voice from your conditioning. Whereas when you feel into this voice, this yes or this no, or this take this path, there may be little bit of anxieties and fears that pop up, but that actual message that's coming through is going to make you feel expanded, rather than be something that is just saying you should do this because this is the way you've always believed. And so that's one little piece that really popped out to me that you mentioned.
Yeah. Oh, thank you for sharing that nuance. That is such a beautiful, I know for me, when I notice that should language popping up, now it's a huge alert. It's a red alarm goes off in my brain, okay, there's some should language here. Let's peel this apart a little bit. Yeah, and it's so beautiful to be able to be in this place now. And I keep pointing at breathwork. We'll get into that in a little bit. Because of breathwork, seriously, truly, because of breathwork, it's so beautiful to be in this place now where I can witness those voices. And there's so many voices, right? I can witness the fear voices. I can witness the conditioned voices. I can witness the unconscious programming. I can witness voices that are from God. I can witness voices that are from love. I can witness voices that are from joy, and witness voices that are just from pure childlike joy and excitement, right? There's so many voices going on our inner landscape. And I think they're all good. They're all good voices. They're all here to serve a purpose. They're all here for a reason. And it's been through breath work that I've been able to kind of pull the threads apart, to be able to recognize that not everything that goes through my head, not every thought that goes through my head is truth. They're voices. They're voices. And we get to see them and honor them and love them, but then also be but also you're speaking from fear. And I'm going to go tune into my higher self real quick and see what she has to say about this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's the piece that because there's this line between knowing that this is a voice from fear and this is the voice from an old belief system. There can be times when people may look at these voices and these parts and still see shame around them or try to get rid of them. And so is the biggest piece about the work that we do, breath work, somatic work, is like you said, it's with that love. And they're all good, like you said. And when you have this part that's talking about fear or that is talking from fear, it's not, it served a purpose. It protected us in some way. And so being able to say, like, thank you for all you've done. Thank you for protecting me. Thank you for protecting me from whatever hurt. You know, I might have been much more hurt if I would have, you know, at that point of my time, like acted it out in a different way. Especially being in a religion, that's like a community. And so if you act against it, you may lose your community. And so that's survival coming out. And so being with these parts and saying, thank you so much for what you've done. Thank you for being here. I'm not trying to get rid of you. I love you, but I'm also going to take the reins back now, you know, just as if, you know, you don't let a toddler who's throwing a tantrum or something, you don't let them take control, but like, you're not going to get rid of the toddler. You love them. They're here with you. But as the parent, as the higher self, or as your whole self, you're just going to take the reins now, and we're going to act out in a different way.
Yeah.
That they can all be here.
Yeah. Yeah. And that brings up for me, in the very beginning, you were speaking to anxiety a little bit and how you used to identify with being an anxious person versus now it's like, no, I feel anxious sometimes, but I don't identify with it. And I think that that's exactly what you're talking about there, is you've been able to unravel that voice. And I'm assuming here, but I'm assuming that you've sent that voice some love. Like, you've been with that voice. You've spent some time with that voice, that part of you that was so, so anxious. And now, like, you don't not identify with anxiety because you've cast it out, right? Like, you haven't pushed it away or shoved it away. You've embraced it. You've embraced it. Can you speak more to that, so I stop like putting words in your mouth and assuming your experience?
No, you're completely right, first of all. So, yes, the anxiety, it's so interesting. It used to be something I desperately didn't want to feel. And so I'd push it aside, or I would try to slap on a million different tools to try to not feel it. And I was still having panic attacks all the time, anxiety attacks, having to, you know, walk out during my shift and sit in my car to try to calm down and be like, why am I feeling this way? Why am I feeling this way? And even just that tiny shift of like, why am I feeling this way? A switch of just like the way that I'm tending to it, and then being able to just feel it. Somatic work has allowed me to let all of these emotions live inside me and let them, when they're coming up, our emotions are an incredible way for our body to speak to us. It is a language. It's allowing us to kind of figure out what's happening inside. And if we just let ourselves fully be with that emotion, track our body, find out like, where am I actually feeling it? Because I am not completely anxious. If you really go inward and feel like, where am I feeling this anxiety? Okay, like on the right side of my chest, I'm feeling like this contraction. I'm just gonna be with this contraction. What can I do? What do you need from me? I love you. And allowing it to have its moment. And if you give it its moment, it's not going to hold so much power. And then we can take back the reins once again. And so that has been completely eye-opening for me. And I want to say, like, it's not easy. I don't want to make it sound like, you know, oh, just feel the anxiety and it's all okay. But it is a tool. Like, you're going to continually go back to it, continually be there with it. And as you start to see, when you continue to do this work, that you're going to be able to, with the acceptance of it, there is a lessening as well.
That is so beautiful. That is so beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. And I would encourage, if anyone's listening to this, I would encourage you to rewind this a little bit and go back to the point where, Alex, you were talking about how you were sitting in your car and you're like having that anxious and you're like, why am I so anxious? Why am I so anxious? Like, what is going on here? And then you talked about that like little shift, and you can hear it. This is why I encourage the listener to go rewind, because you can hear it just in your voice. Like, wait, so you just sharing me with me? You said the exact same words. It was like such a subtle little shift, but you went from like, why am I so anxious? Why am I so anxious? To like, why am I so anxious? Like that, like the whole, like feeling that energy shift, that right there, you in that moment are giving awareness and love to your anxiety. And it doesn't have to be hard. I love, for a while, over the last couple of years, for a while, I was really focusing on emotional wellness. And one of the things I learned is that we actually only feel like if we really sit down with our emotions and feel them, it is usually only takes 90 seconds for an emotion to run its course.
Yeah.
And I always come back to that. It's like we spend years in intense emotions because we're trying to shove them away.
Yeah.
And when what we resist persists, right? The more we resist and the more we just continue to shove away our anxiety, our depression, like the longer it stays, right? And the harder it becomes on our experience. And breath work is all about tuning the lens inward, figuring out like you said, Alex, is like, where does this sit in my body? Where does this anxiety sit in my body? Where's the depression? I just noticed like my shoulders were really uptight and tense, right? And then I said, where is my body? I was like, oh yeah, like I'm going to relax those managers for a minute, right? And when we feel it in our body, it takes practice. And this is why breathwork is a practice, right? It's like every time we come back to the breathwork, we are learning and growing our ability, strengthening that muscle, so to speak, to be able to recognize, oh, I'm holding a lot of tension in my shoulders, and then becoming curious, what is that? What is here? What's wanting my attention? Yeah. So how has breathwork specifically helped you in your life, in your business? Like what do you love about breathwork in the session itself?
Yeah. Breath work is the most mind-blowing tool I have ever had. And I think it's so incredible because yes, you may have someone guiding you, or you may be listening to an audio or whatever it may be, but you're the one that's breathing. You are the one that is creating this magic inside of you. And so it heals the relationship that you have with your body. It allows these parts in us that we may have felt shame about to feel safe. Like we're turning inward. And so all these parts, our inner children, the anxious part, the part that wants to control, they will come to you and because they know that you're there, they know that you're listening. And so you're just creating such a deep sense of self-love. I used to struggle so much with self-worth, with self-love. If I ever had an idea, I would never act on it. Or I would maybe start to act on it, and then all these little voices would be like, you can't do this. What are you thinking? You're not good enough to start a business. You're not good enough to do this or to reach out to this person. But having a daily breathwork practice, really learning how to tune into myself, I have gained so much confidence in myself. So now, if I think of an idea, I go do that thing. And that may seem small, but to sit on different ideas for years and want to do something and then take back your word, like you're breaking trust within yourself. And so I've repaired that trust in myself. I'm, repairing it because it's a constant journey, but I no longer feel disconnected from my body. I love my body. I love my soul. There's this like deep connection, as if I'm my own friend connection. And that is priceless to me. And has, in my daily life, growing this business, in so many ways, it has completely changed the way that I act.
Yeah. All because you make the choice to like sit down and breathe.
Yeah.
Like, it's like so simple, right?
That's what I'm saying is, there's so many amazing tools out there. There really are.
Mm-hmm.
But it's amazing to know that breath, your own breath, has the power to create something like that. And if that
Yeah.
doesn't increase your capacity to believe in your power, then I don't know what
Right.
will, because it's yourself, it's your own breath, you're doing it.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's so interesting as I've kind of, I'm making that transition from being a student and doing practicum hours to like full on business, right? And as I'm making that transition, I think about the people that have never tried breath work before, right? And there's this voice in my head that wants to like convince them. It's
Yeah.
amazing. Like can like teach you like this is why, this is how, this is the science, right? And as you were talking, it really was like confirmed to me, you will never know until you try it for yourself. Like
Yeah.
there is nobody, you can even understand it fully on a logical level. And until you have just tried it, just been allowed your curiosity to shine through and sat down to see what it's like for you, it was like what you were talking about with intuition earlier, is breathwork is different for everyone. It's going to
Mhm.
help you somehow, but it's going to feel a little bit different. So me and Alex can sit here and talk about it all day, but until you actually just experience it and try it out for yourself, it's not going to land in your body because it's such a body experience,
Yeah.
right? It's about like that breath helps you just get out of your head, drop right down into your body and let that intuition speak. And if you've never experienced that before, if you've never experienced your true intuition speaking from the place of your body, you're going to have a really hard time mentally understanding breath work.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's so important, is to understand that no matter what like level you feel you're at, breath work, whether you have never ever tried to hear your intuition before, or whether you already feel very connected to your intuition or to God, or however, it just doesn't matter what level you feel that you're at, because
Mm-hmm.
once again, it's just about connecting with yourself. And
Yeah.
so try it, even if you think like, "Oh, I don't know, I've never heard my intuition before, I don't even know what they're talking about."
Yeah.
But once you let yourself experience it and connect with yourself, then you will truly understand what it means for you as your own unique
Yeah.
person.
Yeah. That's so good. That's so good. Yeah. So tell me, Alex, what are your plans? Do you know what you're doing with your business? Like, what are you thinking into?
Yeah. So right now, since I have my certification in somatic coaching, I have this 3-month somatic journey that I'm
Mm,
doing with women, where we really just continue to learn how to drop more and more into the body. It's like that piece of life coaching manifestation, but making it somatic. So like letting yourself really feel into the body, like what's blocking me, what's going on, why have I not manifested this yet, or how come I don't have
yeah.
clarity yet on this. And so it's a very intuitive based approach to coaching, so it's been
Mm,
so fun already. I'm absolutely loving it. And then I am also in the practicum part of breath work, so big picture, I'm going to really blend these two things together, and yeah, just work with women and continue to help teach people that all the answers they need is within themselves, and let them experience it on their own.
so good. I got chills. I got chills. That's so good. And Alex is amazing. I received 2 coaching sessions from her, and both were just like, yeah, exactly what I needed when I received it.
Yeah.
So be sure to follow it. Your handle is it's Alex Dakota, right? Not to be confused with Go to Dakota. Your middle
Yeah.
name's Dakota, right?
Yeah, I've
Yeah,
always
that's
had
so
Alex
fun.
Dakota as my name on there, so a fellow
I
Dakota.
love it. I love it. You don't meet too many girl Dakotas, It's so fun. It's so fun. Yeah, so go check out Alex and support her and be curious. If she's still doing practicum hours when this launches, go sign up. Practicum, we do
Yeah.
it for free. Like it gets to be an experiment. You get to try risk-free and you won't regret it. Like
Mhm.
you won't regret it. Even if you're like, oh, this isn't for me, like now you know. Now you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. Oh,
it's
thank you
so
so
good.
much.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for being on the show, Alex.
Have a great day.
Thanks. You too. Bye.